Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, February 13th. It is 7:01 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All members of Town Council are present in chambers with the exception of Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Reed is here virtually. Before I turn it over to the first selectman, I did write a note to all town council members that be ready with their department selections by this evening. I would ask that department selections be given via email to the first selectman by the close of business on Thursday. Okay, there's no need to tag everybody else in the email. Just send it to the first selectman. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. First Selectman, budget presentation.
Thank you, sir. Just give me a minute to get the here. Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to present the fiscal year 24 budget as I proposed to you this evening. Start out with just some housekeeping items. First two slides are really not a whole lot different than prior years, just kind of reconfirming that the way we approach the budget with all the department heads is consistent to what we've been doing, what I've been doing the last 5-6 years, consistent principles of watching goal to control taxes with a conservative approach to spending, continue to improve our roads and infrastructure, support our robust educational system while we're delivering effective municipal services and maintaining the strong financial health of the town. The budget document is formatted just as it has for the last several years. It's standardized across departments. You've got narratives that give you overviews, metrics, highlights for each department. Our financials are broken down with details supporting each bill for the item on both expenditures and where appropriate revenues for those departments. So with that, we'll get into the specifics. First, I want to talk about our grand list growth. We have had another good year, a very strong year, with a net change in our grand list of over $43 million. This has been primarily driven by commercial and motor vehicle increases in the grand list. But you can see we've also had a healthy increase in residential as well. The only negative number there is vacant land, and that's what we would expect to see when we're developing in those areas that it would be appropriate to develop. We would expect vacant land to go down. So with that, again, an extremely healthy year. So I'm very pleased to be able to report this. That, as you'll see later on in the presentation, contributes significantly towards lowering the tax burden for our residents and business owners. So what's driving the municipal side of the budget this year? Well, a lot of the same things that we see every year, but I'll kind of walk through some of these. Wages and salaries, as always, a significant driver. We have contractual increases, both collective bargaining, and then of course non-union. Some departments have some part-time seasonal positions that are impacted by the last stage of the minimum wage increase statewide. That is offset by savings and some departmental changes that I will go into a little bit later. Across all of our departments, we have significant increases in utilities. I kind of itemized them there for you, but the budget includes significant increases for all of those things. Gas, heating oil, gas, diesel, propane. There's literally not a single utility up there that isn't up and isn't up significantly. Now, that said, I have a slide later on. I talk about gasoline, diesel, and heating oil. We do have some late news on that, which is good news. I'll get into that a little bit later. So those percentages may come down a little bit, but that's the baseline that we are working into when we were finalizing the budget for the charter required date, which was last week. The police pension plan is through the state, through the thing called CMERS. That $60,000 increase is the impact of the continued increase that the state has imposed on the employer contribution rate. That is the number that we've been told to estimate. We will not get a final number for probably at least a month, but that has been an ongoing number that you've seen increase every year. The costs of recycling continue to go up. We have a contracted hauler that has a certain, inflation rate there baked in. That's a fairly good deal that we have, but the other costs that continue to rise is the cost of disposal themselves. What used to be a revenue generator in disposing recyclable materials that would offset those costs is now additive to those costs. That's something that is being felt statewide. There is I have a slight increase in the operating budget for roads in addition to the standard grants and bonding that we always apply towards them. The operating budget also includes another about $68,000 increase in roads this year. The OPEB plan, that is the other post-employment benefits plan for the police department. And that is, there's actually good news there. We have, because that plan is very healthy, we have a reduction in the annual contribution that is determined actuarially. So we have gotten a solid number in that regard. We'll be able to have a reduction in our contribution by $86,000 this year. Our debt service is going up slightly this year, $60,000. It is a driver, but over the grand scheme of things, with the amount of debt we have, that's not a alarming number at all. It's certainly a driver. And then a large number, over 100,000, is kind of just in all other operating expenses. There's a lot of things in here, everything from routine goods and services, vendors, the cost of materials, everything this year, as you would imagine, is going up, just like we're seeing throughout the state, if not throughout the country. So we're doing whatever we can to contain that, but those supply chain issues and the kind of economic pressures that are being felt everywhere are being felt here as well, and it's rising our costs as well. That said, all in, we've managed to keep the net increase on the municipal operating expenditure side to just 1.85%. And in the inflationary times that we're feeling right now, I'm pretty proud that, and I want to thank the department heads that are here as well, working with me to continue to contain those costs, I think is pretty important, and I think it's very impactful on our overall burden of tax. Switching gears, I want to talk about a couple of departmental changes that you've got in your books. There's a couple of overarching proposals that I have in here. The first is to migrate the grounds maintenance functions from the Parks and Recreation Department to the Public Works Department. There are maintainer positions that are currently in Parks and Rec. They would move into the Department of Public Works. They would continue to operate as the primary resources for maintaining the grounds at town facilities. And just to kind of give you some, we've talked about this in the past, but just as a reminder, these folks are not just working on the parks, okay? Yes, they do a great job in Wolf Park and Webb Mountain, et cetera, but these are the same folks that are maintaining the grounds here at Town Hall and the police station, at the library, at the senior center, at the Stepney Green, at the green out front here, the food pantry, all 6 firehouses, the EMS building as well, which is a combined facility, the animal control facility, and our responsibilities in maintaining the roundabout at 110 and 111. So these functions span far beyond Wolf Park. To do this, part of this would involve the Parks Maintenance Supervisor in the Parks and Rec Department and the Highway Supervisor that are in Department of Public Works. Those positions, which are both currently vacant, would be consolidated into a single new position, General Foreman, of which all the maintainers would report into. It would result in one cohesive unit under the Public Works leadership that would direct all the road and maintenance facilities, facility maintenance for both routine maintenance and what I'm calling storm response. We're talking about plowing roads and parking lots. it's much more efficient, it makes much more sense practically to have one team that is overseeing all of that activity at once. And again, I've been working very closely with both Missy and Chris here, and they're both supportive of this. So this is not something that I certainly would not do without their input. It is a streamlined and consistent approach to everything from vehicle and equipment procurement to repair and maintenance, and again, using DPW expertise. Missy will be the first one to tell you that if she's going to purchase anything from a mower or a vehicle, the first thing she does is lean on the expertise for DPW. So let's put the responsibility where the subject matter expertise lies. What this allows is the Parks and Rec director to focus on Parks and Rec programming, sponsorships, special events, and really developing and expanding our recreational opportunities. To do that, in doing all this, there's a projected net savings of over $80,000. So that comes again by elimination of two positions and replacing them with one. All in, when you include benefits and some increases for additional responsibilities of Public Works, and the minimum savings that we would expect in having one less FTE that would be benefit eligible, i.e. medical benefits, that is at the lowest possible savings rate. Again, gets you to over $80,000 in operational savings. The second change is in our oversight of planning and zoning and building departments. And I'm proposing that those would move to the Director of Economic Development. The town planner, as you know, came in several years ago. I had refilled that position. At the time, it had significant responsibilities and oversight of multiple departments, as well as the technical responsibilities of the town planner. As we've moved on, we have, you'll recall the engineering function was a separate department. It was moved as a function under Public Works. Inland wetlands has been kind of streamlined within planning and zoning. And we have just a much better kind of well-oiled group back there now dealing with things. What this would do would take the town planner role, and the current town planner would assume what is a currently vacant position as the planning and zoning administrator. Actually something that our current town planner has said that he would welcome. He is at the point where he would like to focus on planning and zoning matters and not oversight of other departments. It would allow him to focus on zoning, wetlands, and planning functions. The technical responsibilities that the town planner currently has would move into the planning and zoning function. So all those things that he does now that relate to that function would remain. This is a structure that's been utilized successfully in other communities. This is not something unique. The Director of Economic and Community Development would assume the oversight responsibilities of the department, those departments, planning and zoning, and the building department. And it would consolidate the bulk of all the permitting functions within the same department that are responsible for facilitating that function, which is recognized as a best practice. I'm also proposing at the same time that we would add a part-time position that would be strictly to assist economic development with project work because of the added responsibilities that the director would be taking on. This would involve things like assisting with grants, sustainable CT is one example, various community projects that the director is currently taking on by himself. To do this, as you'll see, we have a net savings of half of the position, and with all the moves, including payroll and benefits, we have a net savings of just under $49,000. Switching gears to the capital budget. There's about $5.7 million in projects that was identified for bonding. There's about $394,000 that's incorporated in the operating budget, either in capital reserve or directly in the departments. I continue to have use of alternative funding sources, including grants. That's over $1 million. And all these projects have already been reviewed and recommended by the Town Council Strategic Planning Committee. There was only a couple of changes that I've recommended since they last met, and those are actually moving a couple of things out of the fiscal year 24 budget for capital. Switching gears to our fund balance. So we have, an incredibly healthy fund balance. As you can see, our fund balance is now $20 million. It is the highest on record at over 20%. And I am proposing that we would include a projected use of some of this fund balance in fiscal year 24, because at this point, I think it is the taxpayers' money. And I think we need to utilize it to help offset the burden that these increased costs that we're experiencing are being felt this year. As you can see, even with the utilization of that fund balance, the projection at the end of fiscal year 24 would say that we're still within the range acceptable to the Board of Finance. So just to refresh you, the current Board of Finance policy is to have a minimum of 1 month of operating expenditures, or 8.3% on hand, a maximum of 2 months, or 16.7%, with a target being 1.5 months, or 12.5%. So obviously, as our expenditures increase year over year, this target moves, but the sweet spot is between these green lines, and the target is the blue line. We are way above the top green line, and what my proposal gets us to, even after the proposed appropriation, we are still just at that top level of acceptable range. So where does that get us as a bottom line? So the potential tax increase, when we calculated it out, was almost 10% before you take into account reductions in proposed increases. One is I did lower the Board of Education increase. This was done based upon the projected availability of grant funds that were already identified by the Board of Education, and I've certainly discussed this with the superintendent as well. And I'll just take a moment to thank Mr. Kobza for his partnership and collaboration. We always have open lines of communication. So I've reduced it by $475,000. Again, this is what we believe the projected availability of those grant funds will be. That reduces the Board of Ed increase to a 4.8% increase. I've lowered municipal increases as well to get us down to the 1.85% increase. And again, this has been done by a combination of use of grant funds and lowering costs wherever possible. The grant list growth that I showed before certainly has a significant impact as well in getting us below that. So our ability to continue to grow the grant list, which I think has been, certainly a driver of that is the improved experience that we've been giving our developers, our commercial realtors and businesses in wanting to come into town and stay in town, and we continue to see that commercial growth. That is helping considerably. And again, as I said, utilization of grants and our fund balance is what's lowering that. So the bottom line is the projected tax increase of my proposed budget is currently at just over 2.5%, at 2.58. And again, I think, I like to keep numbers as low as possible when it comes to taxes. But in this environment, I think this is something that I think is reasonable given where we are, the types of cost inflation that we're seeing. Over the 6 years, with this proposed increase, this still would average an increase of less than 1% per year since the fiscal year began. And last but not least, we will have further refinement as we go through the process. Medical insurance premium rates. So we have the potential of further reduction. We've currently budgeted them at the capped rates, but there's a possibility, not just of the town side, but I understand the Board of Ed side as well, if this number could come down. So whenever that information became available, whether it was during the time council has the budget or Board of Finance, we certainly bring it to your attention and make recommendations. As I alluded to before, we may have a little bit of good news on the fuel side. Both the town and the Board of E are in the process of locking in fuel prices. In fact, we just received contracts this evening. It is a potential reduction. It's a certainty. It will be a reduction from what is currently budgeted. So I will be able to come to you during the process and recommend reductions in several lines that will help here. Board of Assessment Appeals, of course, have to be filed by February 20th. That's nothing new there. That happens every year. Water distribution service, the cost of our hydrants and the water mains that service those hydrants obviously are borne by the town. We just received the notice from Aquarian. We're calculating that impact. I expect it'll be a slight increase. It's not going to be anything that's going to move the needle really, but we will have some recommendations there. I mentioned earlier that the police pension program, we budgeted based upon a projected rate received from the state. We won't typically receive a final rate until March. And last but not least, what the Connecticut General Assembly does on the governor's budget. The good news is that based upon the preliminary runs of state aid, based upon the governor's budget, it would result in a higher amount of state aid than is currently in this budget. So again, another possibility. That is one where I would expect that we probably wait until Board of Finance time before we would have any kind of feeling of certainty of where the state was going in that regard. But it was something that I would certainly keep you apprised of, and I would certainly make Board of Finance aware of where the state appears to be at that time. So if there's the ability to increase those revenue lines, that will help as well. And of course, you all know that your review is due to Board of Finance by March 15th. The Board of Finance review is due by April 20th. And they will also review the Board of Education budget and the annual budget referendum on May 2nd. And that is it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. First Select.
Budget is right.
All right, item 4, consent calendar. I'm moving item D off the consent calendar if there's no objection. Item D, the consent calendar will now be item I under new business. And we will speak about resolution 23-024 at that time. If there's no objection, I'm going to pass the consent calendar as amended. Hearing none. Passing consent calendar as amended. I ask that communication items A through Q be incorporated into the minutes of our meeting. Item 6, public participation. I'll begin with those who are here today. In town council chambers, is there any member of the public that would like to participate? Name and address for the record, please. Can you manipulate the microphone so it faces you?
Again, Jason Duback, 231 Route 8, Searsburg, Vermont, regarding the unfair and uninformed road closure of Spring Hill Road. I spoke here 3 weeks ago and never heard anything. Let's go back to the planning and zoning meeting on 7/7/22. Minute mark, 1 hour and 10 minutes. Mr. Schultz misinformed the board before it voted on the road closure. His exact words were, quote, "never got connected to Route 111 as a through road," end quote, followed by, quote, "and this commission down the road never saw that to be needed," end quote. At the most recent planning and zoning meeting, Mr. Schultz, part of the well-oiled group, admitted he misspoke. Wow, over 6 months later, when I brought out the truth. The meeting and the vote was unfair and uninformed. That referral. And then the town council based their decision on that referral. Also unfair and uninformed. Last week, I called the building department to ask if it's okay if I rebuild the existing second floor deck, the same style and size, and I was told I couldn't do it without a permit. But the city of Monroe will approve a road closure, give town property to a private developer, take away a property's long-term road frontage with no site plan or engineering for 255 Monroe Turnpike or the discontinuance of Spring Hill Road. But today, February 13th, 23, town surveyors were actually out. And then there's a proper notification that was anything but proper. My estranged sister, Sue Ellen Duback, entered a handwritten note received on November 2nd, 22, saying, quote, "We are in support of the Spring Hill Road disconnect," end quote, which I believe was not only wrong, but illegal on her behalf, for not only not contacting me, but agreeing to devalue the property when she knows the bank is foreclosing due to the approximate $300,000 in my birth parents' past debt. But back to Sue Ellen's note on November 2nd, 22, saying we are in support of the Spring Hill Road disconnect. On town council meeting 11/7/22, only 5 days later, minute mark 19, Mr. Kellogg admits on the record that he received letters from impacted property owners which shows support of the road closure. And yet a certified letter was sent to my long dead parents December 6th, a month and 4 days after. Mr. Kellogg said he dealt with the property owners. Even the town records show both my birth parents are dead. And let's not forget, Mr. Kellogg and the town council was actively trying to work with Mr. Dalla Costa at town council meeting 1/9/23. All of these inappropriate and unprofessional methods of the city of Monroe to close a town road for a second time in order to benefit a private developer is wrong all the way around. I had my attorney schedule a walkthrough, and I have 2 different appraisers scheduled for this Thursday. Please advise me what's going on here, because with no engineering or site plan, it's actually impossible to assess. If the board would like to engage me, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Duback.
I'll be here every meeting.
Is there anyone else that would like to participate? Please come forward. Name and address for the record, please.
Lee Hoffer, 272 Stanley Road. It's a pleasure to be here again tonight. It's been a long time since I've been here. I do have a few things I'd like to bring up. One is the issue of Harrowtown Road between corner 59 and 25 and Stanley Road. It's pretty much a disaster. It has been for a long time. It's the only way I can get to my house. And it's the highway, the asphalt is just disintegrated. They do come out and touch it once in a while, you know, take a shovelful, put it in, pat it on, but it's never put on solid. The trucks come through there, we have big triaxle overloaded trucks, dump trucks come through there. You can see that they're overloaded, the tires are bulging. I don't know if we have a tonnage, any way of controlling that, but they just tear it up. You put the asphalt in, it's gone. The agate that's in the asphalt is just pulled out, and it's all along the side of the road. It's no longer in the hole. That little piece, it's only a couple, a few yards, maybe less than 100 yards probably. It's a real disaster. I pay my taxes, and then I got to bounce around my car, getting in and out of my house. The other thing is, I'd like to talk about is the Stanley Road between Harrowtown and 55. That little piece of road is much too narrow. I went over and measured the width of the drive lanes. It's 9 feet from the end to the yellow line, and the same on the other side. We're talking about 18 feet. And then you have these big trucks coming through there. And this is what happened to me last summer. I was headed toward 59, and one of those big triaxle dump trucks was coming toward me. Both rear wheels over on my lane. I had to force over onto the grass of my neighbor. And unfortunately, that morning just happened to be the morning of pickup rubbish. I lost my right mirror. Cost me $365. But the drive on that little narrow road, something has to be done there. There's plenty of room to widen that road on the right-hand side going toward 59. The other side is all stone walls. It would be much more difficult, and also all the electrical poles are there. But this, something needs to be done there. And one of the problems is there's no drainage. A few years ago, they did the Stanley Road from Pattertown over to 25. And they put test basins in, which they already had, but they put new ones in, but they didn't continue on and do the other part of it. So, you know, the only way you're gonna solve that is to widen the road, get rid of the water. The water is what destroys the asphalt. It freezes up in winter, and it just, you know, lots of holes and ruts. So, the two other things, real quick. I noticed that some of our neighboring towns have passed legislation to freeze older residents' taxes. And that's become a real concern of some of the older people in town, the elderly. And I would like to suggest that we consider an option to keep them in the town and reduce their tax or stabilize the tax. The last thing is, we're losing some of our character of our town. Over hundreds of years, we've had beautiful tree-lined roads, streets. Lots of people move into this town because they love the town and they love those tree-lined trees. We're losing trees on a regular basis. I assume the atmosphere is something that's a part of it, but we also have a lot of really old trees that are just ready to come down, and they're being taken down. And so, what I think we need to do, I know the town has quite a few pieces of land around the town, and I think would be a good thing to do is not to. I don't want us to put it in the nursery business, but I think we could start planting saplings now in those locations and just leave it alone, let them grow, and when we continue to take more trees down, we will have trees to be put in place of them. So I think it would be on our behalf to make the town and keep it the way it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. And the road you were speaking about was Stanley Road, right?
Pardon?
The road you were speaking about was Stanley Road?
Stanley and Hattertown.
Okay.
There's pictures and explanation of what I just told you.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that is here this evening in council chambers that would like to participate? No? All right, going online, is there anyone here via phone, tablet, or computer that would like to participate at this time? Please remember to unmute yourself. Once again, please remember to unmute yourself if you would like to participate during public participation this evening. Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close public participation. We have no appointments this evening. Action items, item A, Town Council Committee on Finance, Education, Health, Public Safety Matters. Madam Vice Chair.
We've not had a meeting since our last meeting.
Thank you. Town Council Committee on Planning, Zoning, Public Work, and Park and Recreation Matters. Councilmember Rumi.
We have not met since last council, and nothing's been brought to my attention pertaining to council, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item C, Town Council Committee on Legislative and Administrative Matters. Councilmember Reed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We did meet tonight, and I've actually been working on getting the list in my emails. So if you just bear with me for a second, we discussed a number of matters tonight. We talked about the resolution performing artist engagements agreements, which there are 6 of them we will learn about. There's a resolution regarding individuals authorized to transact on the town's Janney Montgomery Scott LLC account. We had 3 agenda items regarding regarding a bond authorization. One for $1,020,000 for road construction for phase 9. One for $1,195,000 for the purchase of fire apparatus and safety equipment. Another for $745,000 for the purchase of trucks and equipment at the Departments of Public Works and Parks and Recreation. We did hold off, I believe, Mr. First Selectman, we're holding off on the epidemiology and laboratory capacity one.
Yes, I know that the chair had moved that under new business, and I would ask that you guys not act on it this evening because we have a revised agreement that was provided by the state late after the agenda has already come out.
Exactly. Thank you for that clarification. And then we had 2 more regarding additional settlement agreements resolving around the opioid litigation, and another one with the engagement agreement with Blue Sky Fireworks. And
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Reed. Strategic Planning Committee, I can't remember. We did have a meeting before this town council meeting a few weeks ago to go over the First Selectman's capital plan. And there were a few changes to the capital plan as proposed by the departments. And those changes are reflected in the First Selectman's capital plan in this year's budget. The First Selectman did indicate that there were a couple other changes that we can speak about during another meeting. All right. EMS Building Committee, Councilmember Rooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a very short update. I did talk to Burlington Construction, which is our construction manager at risk on that project. I also did visit the site today. Basically where we are right now, the fencing is going on the outside of the property as well as there's a chain link fence and a wooden fence. Those 2 have to be done in accordance to the original plan, as well as a guardrail, which is on order and is coming in shortly. The siding has been completed. We are on punch list stuff from the architect, which I am told is about 90% done, which will allow us to get a certificate of occupancy. The garage doors, the 2 rear garage doors have been done. They were working on the front doors today. So once that's done and the small punch list stuff is done, the one thing that will be left will be the epoxy floor. As we spoke about this in council prior, it was weather permitting. And we will have a finished building. It looks like probably in the area of March 15th, we should see completion outside of maybe a couple of minor details. There are some bumpers outside, concrete bumpers that have to be covered and a finish on a wall, but we'll be probably 98, 99% there. And that's it. So everything status quo, everything's looking great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right. Item F, Open Space Preservation Acquisition Committee, Councilmember O'Rourke.
Mr. Chairman, we have not met since our last meeting.
Thank you. Item G, First Selectman's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first thing I want to just talk about is the Bicentennial Committee. You know, there's a couple of items that were on your agenda this evening that relate to some of those, some of their efforts. I want to thank our chair of our committee, Vita Stone, and the folks that are on that committee. They've been working diligently. They do have an event list, which I've kind of written update that's on its way down there, but just to highlight, and these are things that the committee is working on along with many of our department heads, some of which are here this evening, which I want to thank. There's tremendous support that we are getting from all the department heads in organizing and supporting these events. So just to highlight, Memorial Day weekend will be the focus of the celebration. The Saturday of Memorial Day weekend will include a family day at Wolf Park with games and prizes and concessions and vendors, followed by a Saturday night concert in the park, which we've already got locked in. I know that was one of the agreements you had this evening. And on Sunday of Memorial Day, we'd start with the traditional parade. This year, they want to have some bicentennial themed floats and have a contest in that regard. The memorial ceremony on the town green, as always, immediately following the parade. At 4:00, family events at Wolf Park would continue. And another concert on Sunday at the park with another great band. And then followed by a fireworks display at the park with a rain date of 20 for just the fireworks only. There are other events planned, obviously, and we know organizations like the Historical Society and our SETME Task Force are working on events that they would be hosting. The committee will be launching a bicentennial store with commemorative items, including a holiday ornament, hats, shirts, things like that. So they are well on the way, and they will be sending out information to the public very soon with more information and just kind of getting word out of what's planned. And they're also going to be working actively for sponsorships as well. The fiscal year 24 budget, as you know, I presented earlier, I also handed out a tentative budget meeting schedule as of today. This has been kind of our running schedule template that we've been using for the last few years, just to kind of keep things, keeping things in order. So obviously tonight is your regular meeting for the 13th. You have a regular meeting on the 27th as well. In speaking with Chairman Formicella earlier or last week, and again, a lot of this is due to logistics of availability of meeting space and the Board of Finance Chair's input as well. Looking to have a special meeting on the 28th of February, which would start off with the joint session with Board of Finance that you typically hold, and then followed by the charter required public hearing of the council. The chairman's asked that we tentatively schedule 2 budget workshops on March 7th and 9th. Your next regular meeting would be on March 13th, which is 2 days prior to the charter required date for you to deliver your budget to Board of Finance. So the thought would be, presuming that everything is in order, that you could address follow-up items and make your final vote on that night if you so choose. The rest of it is placeholders for Board of Finance, and obviously, as you know, it goes to referendum on May 2nd. An update on the Wolf Park Fields project. Bids were opened on February 9th. We received 6 proposals. They're all under review. They range, this is for the entire project, all options, from just over $555,000 to $1.88 million. Obviously, presuming that the bids are in order and complete and meet all the other requirements, those that are on the lower end of the 555 are what we're hopeful will be acceptable. These numbers are significantly lower than what we saw a few years ago when they were put out to bid. I think at that time, the low number was well into the 800s, if not almost 900. And this is within our what we have budgeted available. So good news there. Hopefully we'll be able to award that soon and be able to get a contract to council. Quick update on the Lions Cafe at the library. Unfortunately, we did have a burst pipe during the cold weather snap, and the Lions Club Cafe is temporarily closed. The Kerm has already authorized some restoration efforts. We don't really have an estimated time schedule for that yet because they're kind of still getting in there and assessing things, but we'll certainly keep you up to date. It is strictly limited to the cafe area, which, although not ideal, it certainly could have been much worse. It doesn't impact the makerspace, can operate. There's no damage to the collection. It's simply, really just water damage at this point. And then a couple of ribbon cuttings. Cycle Bar in Monroe held theirs on February 10th. And Golf Oasis on Main Street is scheduled for February 15th at 4 o'clock. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Selectman, just a couple of questions based off of one of the public comments today. One, if they have not already, which it's entirely possible, those roads are on our public works radar already. If it's possible to have somebody at least obviously no comment as to what the solution would be without further research, but if it's something that they could take a look at, that would be great.
I had already written it down and we'll certainly look at it. I will say though that I know that in the past, at least some residents were opposed to widening of Stanley Road, but that off the top of my head, that's the only thing I can tell you, but I would certainly have Public Works give me some more information on it.
The only other thing that came into my head was, I know we've in the past designated certain areas as a no-through trucks area. I don't know if that's a possibility for that area considering its location, but.
So that would be under the authority of the local traffic authority, which is the police commission. And we can certainly refer it to them if it is not already designated as such. I will just highlight for you though, that there is a common misperception on what a no-through truck designation is. And this was something that I learned several years ago when I was asking the same question and was educated at the time by the then police chief Salvatore, but Keith White we've talked about this numerous times. So under state law, the only time that the no-through truck designation can be enforced is if the truck is traveling through the entire town, border to border, and has no business anywhere within the town's limits. If they start, stop, or have any business within the town, they are allowed to go on any street, including those that are designated as no-through trucks. So the enforcement, and that is a state law. So although, it's great to have the sign, it's very difficult to enforce.
Makes sense. The other comment was for the senior taxes. If I recall correctly from my days on Commission on Aging, we do in town have some senior tax relief programs.
We have
are income-based relevant, but they do exist.
We do. We have several programs. There's the state-based program, which is funded by the town. We have a town option, which I actually have been working with our assessor and others to actually, in the near future, recommend that ordinance be updated to increase those, both the thresholds and the percentages, just to be keeping up with the times. We have there was an old freeze program that was kind of, there's people that are grandfathered in it, but it wasn't continued. There is a tax deferment option, which is kind of like a reverse mortgage, if you will. So it allows deferral of taxes until the property ultimately changes hands. And I'm forgetting one other option, I think. Am I? I'm looking at Ron, but I can't remember. But we do, yes, we do have several programs that are available.
So my only comment there would be, and I know it's always been a struggle because I remember on the Commission on Aging, finding ways to get this information to seniors has always been a struggle, and I know that's discussed every year with the Commission on Aging, but it's something that I think should continue because one of the items in addition to updating is actually making people aware of it and making sure that those communities, that community does know
what is available to them.
Certainly. Well, I can certainly, I can speak to the chair. I could also speak to our Director of Community and Social Services to make sure that they're continuing to inform them of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mauer. Councilmember O'Rourke.
Also, if I recall correctly, Mr. Kellogg, while you were on town council, I believe you helped author or did author some of these programs as well.
Yeah, while I was on council, I did introduce an ordinance to increase the senior tax abatement at the time. And that's the same one that I'm recommending that we look at again. And as you'll see, and there's actually a few abatement changes that I'd like to propose. So that would be one of them for sure.
No? Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Item 9, unfinished business. We will be handling this after new business this evening. Item A, acceptance of the following donations. I have a motion to accept following donations that individually exceed $1,500. One, $3,012.18 from Friends of the Edith Wheeler Library for the EWML, and $10,000 from Robert Farr for the food pantry and Project One.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Lapellis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So obviously, we want to extend our deepest gratitude to both the Friends of the Library and Mr. Farr. Friends of the Library have been in existence for many years. They continue to support programming and various activities there. This donation includes $2,500 that is being contributed for the Library Speakers Consortium, so a very popular program, and the remainder, just over $500, which is to support the Take Your Child to the Library Day program. So we're very appreciative of that. And Mr. Farr's donation, $5,000 each towards the food pantry and Project Warm. Extremely grateful for that generous contribution. And as we know, it will certainly be put to good use.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting those donations that individually exceed $1,500, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 9-0. Item B, Resolution 23-019. Can I have a motion to adopt Resolution 23-019 as presented in the Janney corporate/non-corporate resolution, which was included in the packet? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Lapellis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Terry Rooney. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for about 15 years, the town has held certain U.S. government-backed bonds with Janney Montgomery Scott. The town treasurer recently alerted to me the fact that this account requires authorization to place, Janney, needs authorization to place his name on the account as authorized to transact as the town treasurer. This is the standard form that Janney has provided in the past when similar changes have been made. As you can see, it is their form that is pretty much that they require in this format. So you have the town attorney's letter of opinion as well. We believe everything's in order. We ask that you move this forward so we can continue to have the appropriate people listed on the account.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. I'm going to make a motion that we waive the reading of the resolutions. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'm going to call for a vote. This is on the waiving of the reading. Please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say nay. No nays. Passes 9-0. Any other discussion on the add issue motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote on the adoption of Resolution 23-019. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. Passes 9-0. Item C, Resolution 23-020. I have a motion to adopt the following resolution, Resolution 23-020. Resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Appropriation of $1,020,000 for road construction and reconstruction Phase 9 project and authorizing the issuance of the town's general obligation bond, an amount not to exceed $1,020,000 to finance the appropriation, copy of which is available at this meeting and was included in the package of meeting materials. It's hereby approved and recommended for adoption by the town. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Mauer, is there a second?
Second.
Wales. I move that the town council waive the reading of resolution 20. I move that the town council waive the reading, the entitled resolution, that's full text being incorporated into the minutes of this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ellis. Any discussion on the waiving of the reading? Hearing none, all those in favor of waiving the reading, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 9-0. The first selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to I'll provide, if it's all right, I'll provide my overview of this item as well as the following two in one presentation, so you have it all at once. So as you're all well aware, during last year's budget process for the current fiscal year, there were several items included in the capital budget. These were all passed at the annual budget referendum in May of 22. Some of those projects are ready to move forward. I recommended their approval. You have my letters of recommendation in your packet for all three that we're going to talk about this evening. As you're aware, our town charter requires bonding to be recommended by the first selectman, town council, and the board of finance, and then voted upon at a town meeting. The bonding resolutions as presented also include some cost updates on certain projects. So before we get into the projects, I wanted to highlight for you, as I do every time we talk about bonding authorizations, of where we are on our outstanding general obligation bonds. So as you can see, we currently are looking at rolling off about $5 million in debt in the current fiscal year. With these bonding resolutions, all three of which total just over $3.5 million. Those would be added debt. We have another $5 million rolling off in fiscal year 24. So all in with this, we would still have not just a declining balance in our overall outstanding debt, but the 5-year average continues to go down. So we're very healthy as relates to this. And in fact, one would argue we might even have a little bit of room here should other opportunities present themselves. There are a couple of projects that were included in the budget that are not on here. And as you know, we have capital plans already for next year worked out. So it's good news that we have capacity there. So the first one that is before you right now is the road construction and reconstruction project, Phase 9. This is pretty standard as we've done each year. $1 million to continue to improve our PCI along with bonding costs. That gets you to the $1,020,000. The second resolution that will be before you this evening is for fire safety equipment. This includes three different items. One is the mini pumper for Monroe Fire. As you recall from the budget meetings last year, this is a small piece of apparatus that was requested primarily because no special license was required and allowed younger members that were under 21, that were in many cases in station already, would allow them to respond immediately and get water on a fire. For Stevenson Fire, they've recommended refurbing their current Rescue 320 into Engine Rescue 320. This will allow them to reduce the fleet by one by converting 302 to a dual purpose for improved efficiency and response. And last but not least, for the Monroe Fire Department, self-contained breathing apparatus and associated equipment to meet NFPA standards. All in with bonding issuance costs, the $1.195 million. And the last resolution before you tonight is for trucks and equipment for DPW and Parks and Recreation. In Public Works, this is our standard ongoing large dump truck replacement plan, one 10-wheel dump truck. It also includes, instead of a replacement, a second truck replacement, which is typically done, instead of the whole truck, it would simply be a body replacement at a much lower cost. Also for DPW, in their current approved capital plan is the wood chipper and 3 smaller trucks, one with a plow and spreader, one for the crew leader, and 1 inspection truck. Again, these are all replacements. And then in Parks and Recreation, there is a Toro mower in there. Again, with bonding costs, brings you to $745,000. And that is it.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mauer?
would you like us to hold discussion to the appropriate item, or since we just went through all 3, ask any questions now?
Why don't we do by resolution and then, okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Then nothing on this one.
Nothing on this one. All right. So resolution 23-020. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 9-0. I have a motion to adopt resolution 23-021, resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Appropriation of $1,195,000 for the purchase of fire apparatus and safety equipment, and authorizing the issuance of the town's general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $1,195,000 to finance the appropriation.
So moved.
A copy of which is available at this meeting and was included in the packet of the meeting materials, is hereby approved and recommended by the adoption of the town. We have a motion by Vice Chair Wallace. Is there a second?
Second.
I move that the town council waive the reading of the entitled resolution and that its full text be incorporated into the minutes of our meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Mauer, any discussion on the waiving of the reading? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. Mr. Reed, please remember to unmute yourself.
I did. I said aye.
Aye, okay. All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, passes 9-0. All right, discussion on 23-021.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Bauer.
Just one question on the refurb. As it's reducing the fleet and we're removing one from the fleet, this can actually end up down the line creating a cost savings or break even, or?
I believe these costs incorporate the trade-in value of the decommissioned vehicle, and Chief Howe is nodding yes. Would you?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, sir.
And we wouldn't be anticipating replacing that vehicle with a new one, at least at this point in time?
No, we will not be replacing the rescue.
So way down the line, we're talking about not repurchasing or refurbing another vehicle too?
Correct.
All right, awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on resolution 23-021? Hearing none, I'm going to call for vote. All those in favor of adopting resolution 23-021, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 9-0. I have a motion to adopt resolution 21-022, resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Appropriation of $745,000 for the purchase of trucks and equipment for the Department of Public Works and Park and Recreation, and authorizing the issuance of town's general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $745,000 to finance the appropriation. A copy of which is available at this meeting and was included in the packet of the meeting materials, is hereby approved and recommended for adoption by the town. Motion by Vice Chair LaPallas. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Donaldin Wales. I'm going to make a motion. Waive the reading of the entitled resolution, and that's full text being incorporated into the minutes of our meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. Any discussion on the waiving of the reading? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 9-0. All right, any discussion on resolution 21-002?
Mr. Chair.
Mauer.
Mr. First Selectman, just with the Toro mower for Parks and Rec, with the proposed combination of the maintenance all falling under DPW, is there a rationale of keeping this in Parks and Rec versus it all being part of DPW?
Well, you'll see that the way the bond authorization is worded, it is for vehicles for either department. Certainly, this would be, as you'll know later on in the meeting, we're proposing that this go to a town meeting in a couple of weeks. So that certainly that department hasn't changed yet, and I don't.
It's possible that this could be reclassified at a later date.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, I think we did discuss that with bond counsel, and there was no issue there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other discussion on? Did I skip one? Resolution 23-022. Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 9-0. Okay. All right. Item F, Resolution 23-023. Can I have a motion to adopt Resolution 23-023?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair LaPellis. Is there a second? Second by Terry Roney. All right. I'm going to make a motion to waive the reading of Resolution 23-023. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Donaldin Wales. Any discussion on waiving the reading? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. The ayes have it, 9-0. Mr. First Selectman. Any other discussion on the town meeting?
As per the charter, the council is required to call the town meeting for bonding or any issuance of debt. The motion, the resolution as drafted would call for a town meeting on February 27th at 6 p.m. In these chambers to consider an act on each of the previously discussed bonding authorization resolutions with 3 separate votes, one for each resolution.
Mr. Selectman, any other discussion on the town meeting? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, this passes 9-0. Item G, Resolution 23-025. Madam Vice Chair?
This is the one.
Yeah.
Oh, where did I? Yeah, oh, no. Madam Vice Chair, I got this. I got this. I was tricking you, Madam Vice Chair, so this is one I got to do. All right. I move that Town Council adopt Resolution 23-025. Resolve that Town Council hereby authorizes settlement agreements resolving all opiate litigation brought by the states and local public subdivisions against all defendants, parentheses, the settlements, and parentheses, including, without limitation, Teva, Allergan, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. And further authorize Kenneth M. Kellogg, First Selectman of the Town of Monroe, upon consultation and written approval of the town attorney, to execute and deliver on behalf of the Town of Monroe all documents necessary to achieve the town's participation in any such settlements, including without limitation, execution of any and all participation and settlement agreements. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So As you know, back in 2020, you adopted a resolution that authorized this action for certain national settlements with some larger pharmaceutical companies. We were recently advised that we can now participate in additional settlements, and these obviously are with retailers, retail pharmacies. So as such, given the language of the original resolution, the town attorney has recommended the resolution before you tonight, which would authorize these and any future settlements with additional parties that the state may advise us that we are able to participate in regards to opioid litigation.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Any other discussion on Resolution 23-025?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Bauer.
Just so council is aware, you may have noticed a slight difference in the wording of the resolution from what was provided for us, moving the definition of the settlements to after finishing talking about opioid litigation. The purpose behind this was that in LNA we discussed that as currently drafted, this could have been interpreted as allowing the selectmen to enter into negotiations for any settlement agreement, not just specifically to the opioid litigation, with just the town attorney's approval. This was to create the definition of the settlements, which is used later in the resolution to say that only with regards to negotiations of the opioid litigation that this process can happen without town council approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Any other discussion on Resolution 23-025? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Hearing no nays, passes 9-0. Item H, Resolution 23-026. I move that the town council adopt Resolution 23-026. Public Kenneth M. Kellogg, First Selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the town of Monroe the engagement agreement and any associated documents by and between Anthony Bauco, DBA Blue Sky Fireworks for a fireworks display at Wolf Park. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Donald Wales. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I previously reported, one of the events, perhaps the main event of our bicentennial celebration will be a fireworks display at Wolf Park. The chairman of the committee, Vita Stone, has advised me that they've recommended Blue Sky Fireworks as the vendor for the event. I asked the town attorney to negotiate and craft a mutually acceptable agreement, which is one of which is included in your packet. However, I was advised just prior to this meeting by the town attorney that the vendor has asked for additional language now to be added, which the town attorney has told me he is not opposed to, but we certainly want to make sure that you have the full text that would be incorporated into the agreement. So with that, I refer it to the town attorney.
I thought I could hide in the back the entire meeting. Yeah, so there I am.
Look at the hide, Frank. He said hide.
So, stand up and address you. So this, I think Ken mentioned how the negotiations went. We had started with a one paragraph letter agreement that was not much of an agreement. I think we did a good job of protecting our rights based on the scope of what is going to occur with this engagement. However, the vendor had some concerns with lawyers in general, but the language that we were using in certain areas. So after some negotiation and some help from Ms. Stone with the negotiation and making sure that we incorporated or found a balance between legalese and plain language. The vendor has accepted the contract, but it has a change. The concern is, and I think the agreement as it's written, by the way, accomplishes the same thing, so that's why I'm okay with the change. I know we have some lawyers on council, so I just want to mention that. The concern is if the vendor, there's certain weather conditions that could cause the firework display to not happen. High winds, rain, Other safety concerns. It could be a town official that terminates the show. It could be rain that just happens. It could be, like I said, high winds. And the goal will be, and we're all familiar with this from any fireworks celebrations over the years, but now that I'm negotiating this, it's a little different. The concern was that if the event is canceled soon enough, there's a certain part of the fee that would be non-refundable. That's $2,500, which is acceptable. The problem was that if the fireworks are set up by the vendor, my understanding is they can't be reused. So they can be covered. The show can be attempted after the rain passes to the extent that we can preserve the fireworks. But if something happens where everything is set up and we lose the show, quote unquote, then there will be no refund for the fee and the show will not happen. We do have a rain date, which is good. So if we are able to cancel the show early enough, they're not set up, there's no loss, the fireworks can happen, then obviously the show will go on, but there is a chance that we could lose the fee based upon certain events. So obviously I was concerned with that. I learned a little bit about the firework industry, and I think Mr. Davin was helpful in corroborating some of the stuff through Mr. Kellogg. So we're on the same page. So the language that needs to be added is essentially regarding cancellation. It's on page 2, paragraph 10. And the vendor is requesting the following notice. If after the engagement of fireworks is set up by the vendor, once the fireworks are taken off the truck and placed on the ground in firing position, this is a setup. Once this takes place, if by chance a heavy rain, winds over 20 miles per hour, thunder, which was added, or lightning occurs, any town fire, police, or public safety personnel or licensed firework personnel in the interest of public safety can stop and prevent the fireworks from going off. If this occurs, the town will own the entire show and must pay the vendor the full $15,000. Additional, it's going to be additional if a fight or riot breaks out or other violence breaks out and the show must be canceled, this also will be a part of this paragraph. The last part wasn't discussed, but I have no objection to that. I can't remember the last time a big riot or fight down the road, and certainly I think fireworks are a happy place, so I'm not sure we'll have it at that moment. I also have the attorney's fees provision in number 11 and an objection to that. So I propose to include that because I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm not worried about it. There was also a consultation with Kerma regarding insurance and that coverage and it being appropriate. So otherwise, I think the agreement's good. So I'm going to take the language as just proposed to you. I would ask that your resolution, in the interest of time and expense, permit me to modify the agreement to incorporate that language, which I will incorporate it word for word, so that there are no issues. And upon the approval of the vendor, we'd be permitted to move forward and have Mr. Kellogg execute this contract so as not to further delay this process. I think we spent plenty of time on it already. And that's my image.
Thank you.
For any questions?
Councilmember O'Rourke.
With regards to rain date, if the fireworks are landed on the ground in position and ready to go, can they remain in that position for the postponement for a future date or?
I think we're going outside the contract now, but my understanding is from speaking to the vendor that yes, there have been instances where the fireworks were set up and covered.
Right.
And preserved and still able to be used at the subsequent later that evening or at the rain date. I don't know whether that's going to happen here. Obviously, I think it's fact specific. The answer is yes. Short answer is yes.
Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mauer.
We did discuss this in LNA as to budgeting. While the line item in and of itself is not budgeted in, we have been budgeting for the bicentennial. There's an additional amount that is in the upcoming budget, and the selectman assures us that between that as well as the fundraising efforts that are going to be forthwith, that this amount should be well within what is was the expected cost of the bicentennial celebration. Also, fire department, we're good with this, right? Yeah.
I am.
All right, awesome. Outside of that, a motion to amend the resolution to allow for the town attorney to amend that we are passing this as amended by the town attorney in connection with the conversation on the record today, and that the updated agreement will be attached to the minutes of this meeting.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Mauer, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Martin. Any other discussion on the amendment?
The only discussion I'll say, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is just that once the agreement is in a form and substance that I'm okay with, I'll make sure that we have another opinion for the file, selectmen's file, and we'll come to you in the next meeting, just so you know.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, passes 9-0. Now that the resolution has been amended, any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of adopting resolution 23-026 as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I didn't get you, Mr. Reed.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, passes 9-0. Item I, resolution 23-024, as previously discussed. This resolution is not ripe for consideration. We were informed by the first selectman that the state has an updated agreement. And when that agreement is finalized and we receive it, this item will be considered at that time. I'm asking for consensus to not act on this item this evening. Hearing no objections, you're skipping this item. All right. Let's see. Unfinished business. St. Jude Property and Community Center project update. All right, I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss St. Jude School Property and Community Center project update, inviting the first select and the town attorney. Is there a second?
So second.
Second by Chair LaPellis. Discussion.
Just for the record, that we're still discussing a pending contract negotiation, which is the reason for going into. Said that.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. Hearing no nays, passes 9-0. It is 8:24 p.m. We are entering executive session. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 9:04 p.m. No votes were taken during executive session. We are on item 11, public participation. Is there any member of the current town council chambers are here virtual that would like to participate in the following item? St. Jude, resolution 23-024. Please remember to unmute your microphone. Hearing none, I'm going to close public participation this evening. I'm adjourning this meeting 9:05.